That. All right, Austin Urie. Finally good to get you here.
Yeah, sorry, my communication skills are what it is. I do Christmas lights for 4 months out of the year, and all of my entire professional ability goes into these 4 months. And then after that, I don't answer my phone, and I have this slow decline into just barbarian style, contactless hedonism. That's what I, yeah.
That's pretty funny, actually. For you work 4 months a year, and then what? The remaining eight, you just play.
I try to. Yeah. The last few years I've been in Hawaii on Oahu trying to make a different business, trying to do something else, trying not to just sit there and brain rot. But happens anyways. That's my default mode. So when I come back to do Christmas lights, it's like hitting a wall. I need to get my shit together.
Well, so that's
Yeah.
definitely that's the definition of a seasonal business, right? But so it's you literally for 4 months just nonstop. And tell me a little about that business because you said you're down Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe. That's sort of real fluent area. But
Yep.
what will you do? You go knocking on doors, or do you have already a
Um,
list of people?
I put out yard signs. I've tried internet marketing. Well, okay, so what I do is I literally put up Christmas lights on roof lines. Some people just don't want to do it. Some people are too old to do it, and I put out yard signs all over the place on the highway, stuff like that. And believe it or not, people actually call me, and when they call me, I come to their house and I put up their Christmas lights,
And then you take them down, or you leave them up? How does
and
that
then I
work?
take them
You
down.
take them down, so
Exactly.
it's at least a customer has two visits, right?
Yeah, and it's all included though.
Oh,
Putting them up is difficult. Taking them down, you just get the pole and yank them down, and that's real easy. I get
and
it all
that's
done.
but the your Christmas lights are theirs.
They're all mine. I
Okay.
got nice lights. We do it all professional. We
Uh-huh.
try to convince them that I'm not just a monkey with yard signs. So I put on a shirt and show up to their house, and they pay me money to do Christmas lights.
Does your shirt have a logo of the name of your business?
No, no, I
You
got
should, dude, because that's you are. Well, first of all, Rancho Santa Fe, you're kind of hidden because when you're off in the big house, but in the community area, you're your walking billboard,
Yeah.
right?
No, I should. There's quite a few things that I should do. I should run with the business because there are people. I have a buddy in Orange County. He's the LeBron James of Christmas lights. This guy does 600 houses a year. He probably makes 500 grand just doing Christmas lights. I every year I do Christmas lights. I get so over it because I work such long hours for a few months straight that I never want to do it again. I swear it off and I try to do a different business, and inevitably that doesn't work out the way I want to, and then I have to do Christmas lights again. So I'm always I could do it a lot better. That's really what it is.
Well, look, I think a lot of times with people with businesses, and there are a lot of things we should talk about tonight, but people sometimes spread themselves too thin and they don't focus. They have all these different projects going on and they're jack of all trades, master of none, kind of, right? But I mean, but
Yes.
you, when we were joking about this, you're actually a master of Christmas lights. You're not Del James, right? But let's face it, you probably own Del Mar and Rancho Santa Fe, right?
Yeah. No, I that is 100% my problem. I can focus, but I have a few different projects, all of them high risk, and if I would just focus on one thing that for sure works and do that with everything that I have, I would be in a way better spot than I am now.
Well, no, but let's face it. So the reason I mentioned that drilling down in one area is pretty important, right? Because you know how to do that. You're disciplined for 4 months intensely, right? But you burn out. I get that. But sometimes people during that same 4 months are doing so many different things, they're not achieving as much as you are. Oh, he is. You work 4 months a year. Then you
Yeah.
play for eight in Hawaii. So some people would say that's a great life.
Yeah, it's no, I have nothing to complain about. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I can sit here and complain. That's always for me.
Well, the reality is you do a bunch of other things, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this with you
Yeah,
because you.
and I could definitely use some input here too, because honestly, I have no idea which way I should go here. Because I'm 29 and I have to pick something that I do and focus. I do Christmas lights. I try to do this pest control thing on Oahu. I have this strange obsession with doing mental gymnastics with AI, trying to do math that I don't quite understand, which is super fun. I think that's the most interesting thing to me. But do I continue doing high risk, high reward type activities and burn another 3, 4, 5 years? Or should I just do Christmas lights or some other easy business, become stable or whatever, and focus that way? So I don't know. That's kind of why I want to talk to you. I want to know how much validity or how off base or how unrealistic my dreams of building something with AI might be.
Well, okay, so here's the bottom line. Don't lose the Christmas light stuff. Don't blow it off. Do it, right? Because that's your body and your hands. Maybe not as much your brain, but it is your brain controls your hands and your body. And so we humans are at the top of the food chain because of the dexterous behavior. I mean, chimpanzees can't play the piano, right?
Mhm.
And so just controlling your bodily movement, it works your brain. Okay, don't ever dismiss that, and I don't. But there's another element to this with respect to the bubble that we're in, okay?
Mm.
And this is indeed a bubble, and people are like, oh, it's not really, it is a bubble. You're hearing it in the news a little bit more, but it is, there's so much money pushed into AI right now, and it's to try to get the world to change to what I have been shouting off rooftops for decades, right?
Mhm.
The world moves so slowly, man. And that's the issue. The point is it's a kinetic thing. There's thermodynamics and kinetics. Thermodynamics is will it happen or not? And kinetics is the speed with which it happens. And the investors are thinking it's going to happen a lot faster than it's going to happen. And they're pushing a ton of money in, pushing the market up, and everyone is going hard into it. Everyone at this top 2, 5, 10%, right?
Yeah.
It will retract, and then the .com bubble, there will be like a wasteland of all these different AI companies. So that's why I say keep the Christmas business going.
Yeah.
And still explore this because it's fun to get involved in this tidal wave, and some cool things that can come out of it. But I think at the end of the day, if you see these lists, what are the top jobs that are at most risk? It's people that actually do AI stuff, that are coders, that are knowledge workers, lawyers, doctors, real estate agents, you name it. Anyone who's on a keyboard, their job's at risk. If you move your body, that's where AI and robots have a long way to go. You're going to be fine. I think number one safe job is phlebotomist. You know, a robot drawing blood's a problem. Just think about that. I mean, don't dismiss what you're doing. Use that as a driving force for the 8 months that you're thinking about other things. That was a long way to get around to that.
Yeah. So you think that we're overestimating what's going to happen in the short term here with AI?
Absolutely. And the reason I'm so hard into it now is because it's so cheap now. And literally, I spend a couple $1,000 a month on AI agents, but I don't think it's going to be that cheap down the road. So I'm trying to get as much done with it as possible.
Okay.
But I'm atypical in that regard. Not many people are doing that.
What does that mean? Okay, so you got AI agents, you code them to a specific task and what do they talk to each other or?
Yeah, so one example I had posted was set up a mini software company. I have an agent that's a coder and an agent that is a manager and an agent that is a QA tester. And I give them their profiles and their rules, and then I tell the manager what I want to have built, and I tell them how to communicate, and I say, go. And the specifications are then put in the coder's framework. The coder codes, produces a program, and then the tester tests, and the manager's helping the self-correct them, and it's just a big cycle. And that's an example of multiple agents working together, and I just say, go, and then I go for a walk.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, you need to have the ideas of what to build, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's, if you have an idea of what you want to implement, that's the most important thing. Actually, how to implement it, don't worry about that. AI will do that for you.
Okay.
So,
What do you think? What's the lowest hanging fruit? Is it AI? I know you said that you mine juicy things and then you sell it to people.
that's my day job. That's right, in the
Okay.
scientific arena, because in AI, content is king. You'd have to train AI on good quality information. So what I
Mhm.
do in my business is actually curate literature in a form that is easy to use for AI model building.
I see.
And so the world is still not there. And the scientific publications are just in different formats,
Yeah.
and it's not standardized, and AI can make mistakes connecting things. So we still need humans to do that curation. But when you put the data in buckets and organize the data, it becomes a database and a value. A lot of businesses really thrive in that concept, is just organizing information for originally for human consumption. But I think as people start to think how you organize it for a model building, but I think for some of the things you're thinking about, where you've been thinking about some fundamental strategies that have mathematical foundation, but they could apply to a whole bunch of different areas.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. No, I definitely want to talk about that.
yeah. Well, and so in fact, let's talk about your pest control.
Yeah, that's
That's
a
kind of an
good
interesting one.
yeah, it's a good transition too, because what basically okay, so the pest control thing on Oahu, there's this crazy beetle. It's called the coconut rhino beetle. And it flies into the palm trees, it burrows down through the crown, and it just eats it from the inside. And they say all the trees on Oahu, they're gonna die. Because there's it's either all trees are gonna die or we're gonna inject all the trees with this gnarly pesticide. It's called imidacloprid or whatever, and it's just classic horrible pesticide. Lasts forever, kills all the bees, ruins the environment, kills the coral, and so yeah, that's it's not just a Oahu problem. That's all pesticides.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with here. So for when I was on Oahu trying to do this, I had honestly some snake oil salesman selling me stuff that wasn't really working. And I was attempting to build a business with it, but it was natural. It was a natural pesticide product that you can, has no regulations, EPA exempt. You can just, it's a bit selling CBD to people. Maybe it does something, maybe it doesn't, but that didn't work out well because it didn't work. So then I just became obsessed with trying to build a pesticide. And this is why AI was super useful in doing this, because right now there's kind of all pesticides made by Bayer and Monsanto and stuff like that. They're kind of boxed into a specific formula. They need to follow specific regulations. They need to only build pesticides that are nicotine based because they have all the regulation lined up to build pesticides off of this fundamental building block. So anything that they make from this, it's fast tracked for approval, and they kind of they silo every part of it so that they can just build chemicals, patent the chemical, and then sell it to the masses. So there's kind of there's a big opportunity for using AI to connect the dots if you're not a super chemist or whatever, and try to build pesticides with natural compounds. Use organic chemistry, things that aren't toxic, maybe something that no one's ever thought of before, and then create your own concoction, try to make a pesticide. So that was what I was doing for a while, just mixing shit up together in my apartment.
I bet that was healthy.
It was not healthy.
So you're exploring different compositions of matter, but just sort of blindly, right? You just see if it would work by killing things. Is that what you're?
I mean, I like to think that. So I would use like ChatGPT to like make some sort of thesis that, for why this would work or wouldn't work, and what I was trying to do is find a way to solubilize like essential oils.
Okay.
Yeah. So essential oils are pretty cool because they have so many properties. They do reduce inflammation, kill pests. There's a lot of stuff. But one of the problems with essential oils is that they're not soluble in water because they're obviously oil. Yeah. So that's kind of like one of the reasons why it's hard to use them. Like if you put it on your skin, maybe not a lot of it absorbs into your skin. Right. If you use it for pesticides, the tree doesn't like oil.
So I think, okay, we're going to go down a pathway that I definitely want to explore, because I know that led you to why you were starting to think through the mathematics of solubilizing oils and basically dealing with the thermodynamics of water and entropy and all that, because
Yeah.
I studied that in a hardcore way, but
Okay.
you don't necessarily need to understand that in a theoretical way if you can explore it empirically with your own experience in mixing things. I wanted to come to something with respect to agents that disrupt species that are actually causing problems.
Mhm.
And I had this discussion with a microbiologist about antibiotics. And I had come from this position that the goal is to kill the bacteria. And the microbiologist said, well, no, actually, the best antibiotics don't kill the bacteria. You want to neuter the bacteria to a certain extent. You still want it to be able to reproduce and kind of do what it does, live, because there's other dependencies on it. But you want to remove its toxicity component. And sometimes it's a waste product that it produces or a defense mechanism. And that's just sort of what causes the toxicity around it. So as you think, again, about that beetle, it's a beetle, right?
Yeah.
It might actually be that the whole ecosystem still relies on the beetle in some manner. And you don't want to necessarily kill the beetle. You just want to make it so that maybe like an Ozempic strategy where it doesn't eat as much.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? And so that's something to think about in terms of maybe the deliberate strategy and how you might come up with an agent or two or a mixture. But sometimes it's also looking for that. Like, where else does nature do that with as an animal or species just like the beetle? And just borrow that idea, because most of the ideas have been solved. Most of the problems have been solved in nature for other things. You just have to become aware of them.
100%. And that's definitely the reasoning that you need if you're going to try to make a pesticide. Is maybe the question isn't what sort of compound kills this. I feel like the answer is probably just approaching it from a different angle.
Right. And so that's why I think as you start talking about the mathematics that you've been working through, which maybe you can describe in a way that you think other people might understand.
Sure.
Okay. But the notion, from what I'm hearing, from what you described to me, was, let me stop because I'm going to bury the lead. Why don't you tell me how you would describe it, what your thinking is?
Okay. So,
yeah, I mean, do it in a way that if you were to describe it to me as if I'm not someone who has a PhD in chemistry.
Sure. Let me try.
Bring it down.
Let me try.
Bring it down.
Okay. I think the good place to start, and I'm just going to ramble here, and hopefully we'll find some sort of signal here.
Yeah.
And okay, so I'm building pesticides, or I'm trying to. And so I'm noodling, doing mental gymnastics on ChatGPT and just asking questions. And I can't even, I don't even remember the correct sequence of what actually got me interested in this. But long story short, I feel I maybe stumbled upon synthesis of old ideas that kind of make sense in a new way.
Okay.
And the whole idea is that the whole idea is ontological. So it deals with what are the constraints of admissibility for literally anything to exist at all? What does it mean for something to exist, or something to be measurable, or something to be admissible within a system? Or what are the reasons for why mathematics work at all? Like I said, very just abstract, but the most fundamental questions that you could ask. And probably the best way to talk about the ontological, the most fundamental building blocks of literally anything at all, is this guy, Spencer Brown, and his laws of form. You ever heard of that? Laws of form. Some people think he was an eccentric. Some people didn't understand what he did, but it's this guy, he wrote a book called Laws of Form, and it's basically, he deals with what must hold true for anything to exist at all. And he talks about the mark, and he says, okay, you separate to make a measurement or to observe something to prove that it exists, you must make a separation. I must exist separate from you, otherwise the existence of me or you is irrelevant.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. And so the idea is that you have to draw a line in between you and me, and you have to separate these two things. and that line itself must be included into the system. Okay. Probably not doing a really good job of explaining this.
No, no. In fact, it seems like if you're within the same environment, it's tough to describe the environment. You have to separate yourself from it, so you can observe that environment, and then you could describe that environment. It makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
But there's sort of elements and there's some physics principles behind this. The uncertainty principle, for example, is a great example. Heisenberg was all over this one, and that's that when you observe a system, you disturb it. And so it goes both ways. I mean, you could separate yourself from it, but you observing the system, it might know you're observing it, or it's just disrupted in a way that you are changing what that true system is, right? And so, look, these are kind of theoretical concepts, but what do you see as you sort of do these mental gymnastics over these concepts? It all came from your mixing of substances together in your kitchen.
Yeah.
So were you trying to use that to try to enhance your ability to come up with a better mixture at this point? Well, or is this just, oh, I give up, and you're just starting to think about this other stuff?
No, this is good because what you just said about the uncertainty principle and how observing the system affects both the system and the observer, and that nothing is truly separate from anything else. And I was building the pesticide. I was really just trying to build just a compiler of how essential oils will affect the tree in this way, mixed with these compounds, just a big graph of just an organization of thoughts. And then one thing led to another. I can't really explain to you the exact sequence, but I started really going into just the rules of admissibility, because that's essentially, if you think about systems, you can either spend your time noodling on the extremities of how things work together, but if you miss the most fundamental part of the system or the most fundamental rules, you're looking at the wrong part of the system. So I was just trying to dig deeper, peel back the layers until I get to that chewy center of the Tootsie Pop. And turns out that's obviously the question everybody thinks about, all philosophy, mathematics, stuff like that. As far as describing what I'm trying to describe, going down the road of not being able to separate yourself from the system is really the exact heart of it. And if I can talk just for a few more minutes, I think maybe we'd get there. Yeah. So this idea that you observing the system entwines you with the system. This essentially, what it is the idea that existence isn't objects, existence is relation. Instead of objects interacting with each other and the objects make the system, the idea that a system is more than the sum of its objects or its parts, it kind of gives to the idea that existence is relational. So it's not, what matters is not me or you, it's the fact that we're both sitting here together having this conversation. That would be identity. So instead of, once again, individual objects or individual measurements having identity, it's the relationship between relationships, basically.
Okay.
And so this idea is kind of, the entirety of mathematics is basically the idea that you can isolate relationships or you can isolate objects. All formal mathematics, when they turn self-referential, when they start talking about themselves, they run into incompleteness. They can't fully describe the rules of which you gave them, basically. And so what that is, that idea that you have a closed system that fails to represent itself when it gets self-referential, is the exact idea that a system can't live apart from its environment. So what you have is, you can think of a formal system being an individual slice of reality. If you were going to make this continuous relational existence discrete and take a certain slice of it and then declare that the contents of that system or whatever is the object of reality, basically.
Lose an hour, right?
Let me know if I should just
No,
we can move on to something else.
Well,
too.
no, look, I mean, this,
I really feel it requires a certain amount of steps to get to what I'm talking about. That's if I just told you,
But actually, I think you should try. Try to go backward.
okay,
Start from the conclusion as the headline,
okay,
and then deconvolute it down to the basic subparts.
okay, let's try that. All right, round two.
No, it's okay. Look, I mean, you're still trying to work through it. I get it. I mean, you work through it includes refining it so that you can communicate it because you have a level of understanding, and in your own framework that you've described, just having it within yourself is not adequate. You need to be able to have it communicated to other parties for it to be real.
Yeah, I know.
So
Okay.
you just have to get it to that way. And I think I see parts of this actually keep coming back to the beetle and the beetle in the tree, because that relationship we might perceive as being just destroying the tree. But big picture, nature, if the beetle killed all its food source, it would perish. So there's some level of symbiosis that's there. It's just over exaggerated, and it's maybe eating too much. And then when the trees die, then so does it. And it didn't do the math right.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a relationship there. And we might see it as potentially toxic between the two. But so I want to come back to that however you can, because that was the foundation of what gave you the idea, right? So there's still a there, and I think it's important to come back to that eventually. But tell me the conclusion and then break it down.
All right. Yeah. The idea is that you take, instead of recursion, outputs feeding back as inputs as a concept, instead of recursion as a tool, like within a closed system, recursion is the substrate. So, yeah.
So we have to be careful with words that we're using, because I understand recursion in a bunch of different ways. There's a computer science definition, but you nicely defined it as outputs coming back as inputs, at least as one way to get people to understand better. The word substrate to me also has a very important chemistry meaning behind that. So how are you using substrate in this context?
I would say that substrate is the place transformation happens. Okay. So instead of happening to objects or states, you have recursion being the relationships itself. And that would be the substrate. Not the best word, but I don't really know any other word to use for it. And I think the reason why I have a hard time explaining this is because I don't think it's been put into words in the way that I'm trying to explain it before.
Oh, well, we just need some different vocabulary words that are less intimidating.
Yeah.
Or actually words that are not used in different contexts.
Yeah.
Sometimes confused. You use the word substrate in your context. You might even substitute the word environment for which the system is operating in. It's like the closed environment that it's operating in, if I'm getting that right. But even with that said, a system calling itself.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go with that? I think you mentioned to me that the notion is that's like a foundational truth, that everything does that in one capacity or another.
Yeah, the idea is that a function calling itself exists within a closed system in computer science. And the key point, the key difference and extension that I'm trying to make is that recursion actually happens in reality within an open system. So instead of a function calling itself and then computing to a fixed point, it doesn't exist within an open system. It exists within an environment where all the potential outcomes don't exist within the system already. And so if I'm talking about like you and me, we can consider ourselves as recursive systems because we are self-referential. Every cell in our body creates and maintains the boundary of itself. It's from the bottom up. Our atoms to consciousness itself has this one thing in common, which is that they're all self-referential and they're all open. So the relationship that our bodies have to the environment is that we are our own recursive self-referential systems, and yet we're not closed from our environment. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's heady stuff, and so I can see it's kind of like any philosophical construct. You could just kind of cycle and cycle and cycle, but I know you've put this in context of like some examples, and I think you cited a couple examples that maybe some people would understand, like various themes and storyline that are repeated.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, you want to hear another example?
Yeah,
'Cause
okay.
This is good for me. Let me just
yeah.
no one listens to me, so yeah.
Well, it's because it can be pretty tough to follow. I'll be honest. I mean, you have to really hold back, and a lot of times people want to jump to their own thoughts.
Yeah.
You have to be very patient and follow with where you're going, and that can be challenging. So
Yeah.
that's probably why people don't listen to you.
Probably why. Yeah.
It takes a lot of patience.
I know.
But that's not a bit. Look, I think that just distilling shit down to headlines nowadays is pretty important because people's attention span just going to shit.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think I've talked to you about this, that you can have a brilliant idea in vacuum and no one else is aware of it.
Yeah.
It goes nowhere. I mean, you want to have your brilliant idea resonate out there.
Yeah. So I think to distill it even further, it's recursion with an open boundary.
Okay. So one of the things in computer science, when I've leveraged function calling itself, gets to a point with which you sort of have a stopping point where it can kind of pull back out, right? Because otherwise it would just keep going and going and going ad infinite to the point that you run out of memory in some cases. So you gotta be careful. But you kind of have to achieve something, and then it's okay, zip back out. And it's a really tough concept for even computer scientists to follow a lot of times, recursion. And there's some really elegant algorithms that use it. So I'm just wondering if there's a way for you to describe your framework, your thinking, where you're not using either the word recursion or the difficult nature that's associated with understanding what recursion is. Can you describe it differently?
Yeah, I would say that without using that word, I would say that it's just open boundaries.
Okay.
I think what I'm really talking about is like something that I feel like I've started to narrow down as like something like deeply ontological and like I said, like a synthesis of the deepest parts of what we already know. And so let's just take the open boundary. Like you and me, once again, like we're inseparable from our environment. Like we interact with everything and we maintain our boundaries. We're able to grow new skin. If you get in a car crash, you get hurt. So there's this constant of just, we're able to generate our boundaries, and yet the environment is still 100% a part of us. We're not separable from our environment. And this is it's the largest boundary, the deepest boundary in all mathematics is this boundary. It's Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which is that describes the boundary of any formal system. So the boundary of any formal system is that it's able to explain everything from within itself, and yet it's incomplete. There's part of the system that remains indescribable from within that frame. And so these are the boundaries. Like you and me, we have open boundaries where we interact with the environment and we're shaped by the environment, and everything's kind of a feedback loop with us and the environment. And parallel to formal systems is that they also have a boundary, and yet that boundary remains closed because computer science, like programming, like binary computation, cannot, if you have a self-referential or a function that calls itself, it's either going to halt or go into infinite regress, right? So the whole idea with what I'm doing is that I think I figured out a way to make formalism have an open boundary. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that every time you and I have a discussion, I'm always saying, okay, what are the applications? In fact, this is the sort of thing I think is really important here, and that's how you can use an example to describe what you're thinking, right? And I think I threw a few at you with respect to some in biology, some in physics, some in ecosystems, that just several different things that you might apply the math and your thinking to. Because at the end of the day, I may have told you this, you might be aware. When Nobel blew up people, it was unfortunate. Came up with the prize, right, to try to cover up. He just made such a tragic mistake with that. But he would not allow mathematicians to win the Nobel Prize. They had to come up with their own fields.
Yeah.
That's just because math, pure math, I think it's just a big abstraction. And it's often, I think it's an invention that we have to try to articulate an understanding of the way we perceive the world. And it's just using symbols and thing in a language that only a small fraction of people on this planet understand.
Yeah.
So math itself is okay and useful. Bridges are built with math. But at the end of the day, we need the bridges there to drive across the bay. It's a long
Try
way to
one
get
more
at it.
time here.
Huh?
Let me try one more time.
right.
One more example.
Okay.
All right.
So
So
no, you haven't given an example yet. I'm just curious, what example did you give?
you're right. No, you're totally right. Okay.
That's example one.
Okay. Example one here is how I think the reason why AI works so well.
Okay.
Mostly you think that it's next token prediction, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
an expert in AI.
For the AI that's getting the most press today, the large language model next token prediction is really, that's correct.
When you ever talk to an LLM for a long time, it feels alive. Like sometimes the conversation you have is so good, the flow is amazing, and it's all kind of assumed that this interaction is just trick of next token prediction and other things. But my argument is that it's what's actually happening is when you have this human element talking to the LLM, you kind of introduce this realm of possibility that exists outside of what is in the LLM already. So when you're talking to an LLM, going back and forth ideas, things start to get sharper over time. To realize more clearly what you want to talk about, you get the LLM to give you clearer results. And so you can think of it as you're just further constraining your ideas in the conversation until it gets down to the atomic core of whatever you want to say. And I would say that it's obviously amazing probability next token prediction, but the real magic happens because the person, the operator is talking to it. You introduce a boundary that, once again, exists outside of the deterministic engine of the LLM already knows. So you have a little bit of randomness, let's say. It's not actual randomness, but you introduce something that didn't exist before and couldn't be accounted for, and you could think of it as two separate systems interacting. You can think of like you in the environment that you're in, shaping information, and that creates something interesting. So what's not interesting is what the LLM says or what you say. It's like what comes between you guys.
Okay, so Curious what you were thinking when I described my example of what I agents, where I have a coder and a tester and a manager, where I actually have AI communicating with AI. If we just use AI as just large language model talking to another large language model, I provide the initial input into it through the manager, defining what I want to have built. And there's this cycling amongst these three parties that often will keep going. And I often just will say, well, let's see what it looks like. Well, wait a second. We've kind of pushed it a little far. Let's bring it back. And I add more input into it. But they're still going back and forth and cycling. And there's that relationship, as you're calling, as an individual with ChatGPT, is what I'm having as agents to agents going on. But I'm just providing input at some point. Where we're really seeing some incredible breakthroughs. Look, we've achieved AGI already. And I don't know if you're following this, but there is a real business reason why AGI is not broadcasted all over the news right now. And it's in large part because it was written in contract between Microsoft and OpenAI.
Okay.
Yeah. And if as soon as OpenAI achieves AGI, and AGI has been achieved, no question. You roll back 10, 15, 20 years, and if they saw what we're doing today, they would say, holy shit, that's AGI to the 10th power. It's just off the charts.
Yeah.
I've literally, the way I'm using it today, 10 people that are working for me in AI.
Yeah.
And that's general intelligence in context. I mean, it understands some chemistry concepts that I'm dealing with, the biological concepts, of course, the programming concepts, just human interface concepts. I mean, there's so many things that there are a huge percentage of people on this planet can't even do.
Yeah.
And so AI to AI is already doing this thing that you were kind of describing. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a great example to use because we're already there and actually going way beyond that at this point.
100%. I think that's what I'm trying to describe is that happening right now for sure, but there's maybe an engineering philosophy to take to fully lean into what I think is the real magic here. Because I agree, it's already happening. You hook up your AI agents, you talk to them, and then you get this system that just merges in between. And
Right.
that's real intelligence. It's
Yeah.
not the LLM, it's what you do with it and how you synthesize it. The singular idea, the most fundamental idea for why that works is the idea of an open boundary. Once again,
Open boundary, I'm sorry, you go beyond. An open boundary, from the way you're using it, is expanding beyond what an individual unit or entity would otherwise expand beyond on its own. So what you mean? Open boundary means there's another entity that's helping to pull from the first entity outside of its shell, so to speak. Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah.
You need another party. Back to your original form concept, is that you need a separation. You need more than just one
exactly.
to achieve this.
Yeah. And importantly, the next thing that you say to the LLM or the next thing a different agent says to another agent exists outside of the deterministic probability that it already has. And so you can think of an LLM being a closed system. Everything that exists in an LLM is as convoluted as it is, and it's a black box, and it's almost impossible to decipher why things happen. It's ultimately deterministic. I get that correct.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons they have this concept of, I mean, there's probability functions throughout, temperature function that people are terming hallucinations and that sort of thing. If you, in the early days, provide, and even today, the same input, you can get different output.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what's the definition of deterministic the way in general, but how you're using it right now?
I'd say my definition would be a formal system definition. So if you're talking about rules create a universe, and you can only do computation within those rules, and nothing can exist outside the rule book.
That's why I say this example of if you give something same input and you get different outputs, that is not following the rules per se, right? Because if it were following the rules, if you provide the same input, you should get the same output. It's not identical what the input is, but each time you repeat something, you expect to get the same result. And the definition of sanity, you try the same thing and expect a different result, right? But to me, I see something being somewhat deterministic is if you're applying a set of conditions in this system that's following a set of rules, you're going to get the same answers that out as what you apply. Now, the beauty of why chemistry, for example, has always excited me is it's so not the case. You can have the exact what you think are the exact conditions, and it's completely a different result. And you're going, whoa, what the fuck? But often it's because there's this confounder that you're not even considering that's present. And here's a great example. I don't know if you heard the story. You remember the experiment where they put the standard elements in a chamber and lightning, created the first amino acid sort of thing? You ever hear this story?
No.
Oh,
tell me
how life might have formed from these simple molecules. How the hell did you get these biomolecules, right? So the formation of things like a key building block for proteins is an amino acid, but how do you get even to the amino acid? And so there's a researcher in Italy that had demonstrated that you basically can put the key components in, run electrical current through, and you can get these building blocks of life. Well, that couldn't be reproduced for many years. And it's because it turned out we were using different types of containers. Materials were different that weren't the original glassware that researcher was using. So it was really difficult to reproduce, but it was mentioned in all these chemistry books for years and years and years. Well, it turned out you need to have the glass chambers because the glass surface has got these pores and imperfections, and you need to have the basic atomic components close in space. They were held close in space because of these pockets and these pores, and the electric current coming in would form it. So the point is, could be reproduced. We're doing the same exact thing. Why can we not get the same result? It's because they weren't thinking, well, the one thing that's changed is the actual reaction container.
Yeah.
And so that's why chemistry is so damn difficult, because everyone just forgets there's so many other variables that they didn't even think about in the first place. And they always dismiss this as saying, well, if we consider them all, it would be purely deterministic and everything would follow the rules. And it would always be that no matter what we do as input, we expect to get the output the same each time we do it. So long way to get at that, but it's something to think about, because there's a degree of randomness that is intentionally present in LLMs. And that's why you have these temperature factors, right? Because you want to have some variability. Otherwise, you would be getting the same response to some input, and you want to have the variable response.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
I've been with neural networks for decades, right? And what really got me excited when I started working with them is, as I look back to the core unit, the biological neuron computational node, it's a nonlinear decision-making tool. It's an integrator. It just simply takes the weighted sum of its inputs, and it fires typically according to some activation function, which is nonlinear. It could be a sigmoid or just step function or something. And it's basically stimulus coming in, stimulus nothing. And then suddenly it reaches a certain maximum threshold, and then boom, it just sends its information outward. That one simple concept, when you start networking it, gets to do some incredibly powerful things. And I was getting neural networks to basically predict just about anything. I was throwing problems at neural networks that I had no idea. I couldn't fit the math equations to it, but it was just like it could learn them, and it could not just interpolate. Sometimes it extrapolate quite well. Our brains are like that, multifold. So when I see LLMs, for example, the next token prediction concept, there is a real hard there that we've fallen into that people get, and that's why people are so excited by AI. That makes sense to them. But have you ever not remembered a name or a movie title or something that you just have the tip of your tongue, but you just don't know how to get to it. People,
Yes.
it happens all the time, right?
Yes.
And so what do you do? Sometimes people think, okay, that movie with this person that does X, Y, Z, and people kind of converge, and then you get the answer, right?
Yeah.
I use a technique that I'll start with the alphabet. I'll go A. No, it's not A. B. No. Oh, it's got to start with D. And then I go, okay, if it's the letter D, I know it's going to have a vowel that follows. So I'll go D-A, I, O. No, kind of like I'll start to piece together a primer. And eventually I'm like, oh, and I get just enough and it gets me the word.
Yeah.
And so I know we have in our brains effectively mini LLMs.
Yeah.
And given that, since we are the creators, humans are the creators of all the content that LLMs are trained on, it's kind of like this microscopic, macroscopic thing. All these little mini LLMs, we created all this content, get these even bigger LLMs that can learn it, and it's like this massive brain. So that's kind of, I don't know if it aligns with what you're thinking of this recursive concept, but it starts with the core that's just kind of repeated and just.
Yeah, I think that's so wild. Like what you said about if you have just like 2 letters in your head, you can just say it until it comes to you.
Well, no, I would systematically go through like, okay, no, it's D. Okay, no, D-O, D-U. Okay, maybe it's not D after all, then it's E. If it's an E, you start to work your way through it. But it's a systematic strategy I'll use to try to remember the names of things and eventually get to it. Or sometimes I just have to take a nap or something and come back to the next day. But I mean, to me, it's a little example of an LLM.
Yeah. Yeah. It just blows my mind the way LLMs can take what I'm saying to them and then turn it into something.
You're playing with you're primarily using ChatGPT.
Yeah, I just use ChatGPT, honestly.
And so some of these programming interfaces that I'm using right now, like Cloud Code or Codex, is OpenAI's. There's Gemini has one, Gemini CLI, and then the top one I found is Factory.ai. It's pretty cool. These are coding environments or LLMs that are just focused on getting you highly efficient as a coder. Okay. I haven't coded in months in terms of like the old way, loops and if conditionals. It's just me articulating in English.
That's so sick. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You've seen some of the code and the applications I built. My AI dad, right? I've done all these different toasts things and I do with my work. It is 100% now English coding.
Yeah.
People call it vibe coding. I don't call it that. It's just articulating in English and coding. And these systems are getting incredibly powerful. We'll look at, I don't even know how my code base works anymore. I've just gone, and this is a matter of months. I'll have literally hundreds of programs, and I just didn't even know how they interface with each other. And I'm just like, figure this out for me. I feel like call it help. My computer's not working, right?
Yeah.
That's how I'm talking to my LLMs.
You should send me some of those because I want to use those.
What you mean? You mean the actual? You can have access to any of these, the Codex or the Cloud Code, or you can download these. If you have a laptop, download it. You open up a terminal, and you install it. There's one line to install it or two, and then you literally just talk to it. Now I've taken the next level. I use this Whisper. I think I forwarded that to you, didn't I? It's a voice to text. I don't know. I think I did.
I don't think I missed that.
It's really good. You look at like microphone on your phone, voice to text or something.
Yeah, it's shitty.
It's shitty, right?
Yeah.
Whisper uses AI, so and in fact, I think it learns based on how you talk to it anyway. And it does punctuation, and all my emails are basically that way now too. But I literally use Whisper. My day of coding is I'm walking on my little treadmill at my stand-up desk, and talking to my computer. Kirsten will say, "You're yelling at your employee today, aren't you?" And Whisper, it takes all the F's, bombs I drop, and they just, we don't need that because the LLM. Yeah, exactly. Because I said, "You stupid motherfucker," and it just cuts that out.
That's great.
Exactly what I need for the coder.
I need that. I need somebody to just abuse and do what I want.
Yeah, no, I strongly recommend Whisper. You should check it out because especially with your ideas, you should get to the point where, I don't know if you're a typer. I can't even get close to where
I don't type at all. I just talk to ChatGPT. my natural language.
Oh, do you do it on the microphone?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part about AI is I'm not a mathematician. I don't know. I literally am a monkey and I have chat GPT and I can turn my philosophical ramblings or ideas or whatever and it just can tell it to be math
Yeah.
and it connects philosophy to actual math,
Yeah.
which I think is nuts.
So think about that. How old are you now?
I'm 29.
Yeah. And so you're of this era where you didn't have this when you were just going through school in the early days, right? But you embraced it now, right? Think back if you were in grammar school and you had these tools. I know teachers are afraid of them. I think they're just wonderful. I think it would take people to the next level.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's so obvious that you don't, the point isn't to learn things, it's to learn how to ask questions and how to follow a thread and actually just make your ideas more concise and clear over time by talking to each.
So you're back to your original questions as you're finding yourself, right? Okay, you spend 4 months of the year working your ass off so you can spend 8 months of the year fucking off.
Pretty
I
much.
think you can't do that forever, but you have an opportunity in your era to be a solopreneur. Okay. And that's what's exciting. Most people think you need teams of people to achieve a business. And now with these tools, you really don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. And you just have to have the ideas. And you can even get, say, ChatGPT, write me a business plan. Why do you need a business plan? I mean, you talk it out and then say, okay, well, what do we need? XYZ. Do we need, okay, we need a website. We need to do e-commerce or whatever it is. You don't need the huge numbers of employees.
Yeah.
As startups and even a small core of people, you can start companies by yourself today.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's, as you think through some of these things, I mean, I do come back to that beetle, the relationship that it has with the trees.
Yeah.
I mean, it meant something to you to want to get into that. I mean, right? I mean, I assume you still are interested in those kinds of ecosystems.
Yeah, I definitely am. It's kind of just choosing a path. Do I, what do I focus on? The lowest hanging fruit, or should I try to make my indescribable AI
concepts, a particular application? Right?
Yeah.
And you could use your spare time to actually test those ideas. Business right now is so important, not just for the short-term money you're making, but you are actually interfacing with people in a part of this country that, I mean, they're the top fraction of 1%.
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of wealth here nearby. And so I'm not saying you knock on their door and say, hey, I've got this business plan. Let's talk about recursion. It ain't going anywhere, dude. They ain't going nowhere. But you might have an idea that you have established an interface of a community into a community that you could potentially build off of in some way. Whether you start with just expanding the LeBron James of Christmas lights, right? But think about that. That could lead to, you're up there, hey, why don't we clean out your gutters? Even though we don't really have leaves or anything like that. But you could stem from that business perspective. But there could be one person in there that could be someone that sees something in an idea. That could be someone who helped finance you on a project. So that could be huge. I don't overlook that.
Yeah. I want to know what you do. I want to mine data.
Yeah. There are a ton of businesses that have grown that way. Fell into it because I started at a company that was focusing on chemical information in the early days. And I recognized right at the beginning that the databases, the content were really valuable to people. And people would license software, but they'd license software to access.
Yeah.
Because it was the data that was important. And we're in a day and age that everyone has access to the same kind of data in one way or another. It's how to give them the edge to get there faster.
Yeah.
So, again, if you think about, I don't know, I look at stuff in terms of the things that interest me the most, in terms of health and wellness and music and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I know that a lot of the challenges people face are problems that have been solved elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's just a general concept. And for me, it's just a matter of finding those solutions that have been achieved elsewhere and bringing them to the people who are in need of them. And nature is a remarkable problem solver. And because it's had so much time to work through these iterations.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's crazy. Yeah, I was listening to it was like Huberman Lab guy or whatever. He's talking about like, just taking drugs that have uses already. They're like they treat a disease and just literally trying to figure out like what other diseases does it treat.
yeah.
And the whole thing is this guy just found out that turns out there's a lot of things you can there's a lot more applications for already approved drugs that can save lives.
Yeah, the term's repurposing. And there's an interesting phrase that CEO of, I think Glaxo, when I was part of that entity, had used. No, actually, it was at Pfizer, I think the CEO said it, that he said, we discover our drugs in the clinic. Now, for anyone who works in the field of drug discovery, they take great offense because they spend all this time trying to rationalize thinking of how do we build a molecule and these protein targets and some do these high throughput screenings of sludges and muds and stuff, and they just try to rationally design molecules. And they get to a point where they say, oh, they do all these tests and they spend all this money, they roll the dice and they say, can we test in humans? And a lot of the times it fails. But in the clinic, once you're there, they observe how the compounds actually perform in human. And so there are a ton of examples. A lot of these dick pills, like Viagra, right?
Yeah.
You know the story of that one?
I mean, I know part of the story.
One story that's just funny as crap. I mean, it was originally, I think, designed as heart med, and the monkeys were basically all masturbating. And they're just, it's just like, yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh, there we go. We got a new indication for this drug.
Yeah.
But what's really, really interesting is later, and we've seen this, it was the last year? Maybe it was the year before. Man, time goes by so quickly. But it was at Cleveland Clinic identified in some of the data that patients on Viagra had lower incidence of Alzheimer's. And they were able to eke this signal out because, first of all, Alzheimer's is a disease where women are more afflicted by it than men, proportionally. And so there aren't many women on Viagra. Sure, by comparison.
I see where this is going.
Well, but my point is they were able to pull signal out of that data. When you say, do what you do, the key is to try to find data that you can help people pull signals out of. I think I recommended you one project that you could consider with respect to antimicrobial type activities. With data sources, a ton of free data available that you can just access. And you don't even have to understand the statistics or even know how to model it. These AI systems are so good at the hardcore built a career on. I am literally just saying, just do it. It's crazy. So if I can do that, anyone can.
Some scaffolding would be nice.
Yeah, well, you asked the questions.
Yeah.
And yeah, but think about different things that apply to you. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to product or service business, I think you found a little bit of a niche with the Christmas lights thing because there's a significant population of people on this planet who put Christmas lights up, right?
Yep.
There's a market. It's really tough to just come up with a product and think, oh, I'm going to sell this. And then because it's like, build it and they will come just doesn't work, right?
No.
Right. The way I look at it is if there's something that's interesting to you as a product or a service that you would use or that your friends would use, that to me seems to be a good starting point. Period. And then just solopreneur it from there.
That seems reasonable.
It's kind of open-ended, sorry. I reflect on this because I know the biggest challenge today for people is knowing what to do.
Yeah, that's what I struggle with 100%. I see a few different routes that I could do, and it's all a risk game, right? I mean, you shoot for the stars, you could fall on your ass infinite amount of times, while the plumber down the street who just does toilets is building an empire. And There's no moving parts. I mean, I guess there's some moving parts in toilets, but 2 or 3, I suppose. But I don't know. I don't know what to do. So the whole data thing is interesting. If I could draw a parallel to my ideas or whatever, it seems like what you do is you take information, you separate the wheat from the chaff, right? You take huge amounts of information, you condense it, or you filter out the most important parts and make it usable. I would say that for the whole thing that I was talking about, I'd say that that's the singular movement of whatever, the recursion or whatever I'm talking about. The singular movement of that is a sieve, basically. Continuous refinement of information until you get the atomic invariable core. I think that's the key to understanding anything. It's the key to training LLMs, you say. It's the key to, it's not even a key, it's like the meta pattern. Everything around you, houses get better, cars get faster or more efficient. Society generally trends towards less hunger, better cooperation with each other. Intelligence seems one way, like monotone, and the process of which that happens is just simply separating the wheat from the chaff, like a literal sieve where all the important information survives and everything useless just simply falls away. And so it's almost like intelligence just by simply forgetting what doesn't work. So that's kind of the way I see it. That's just the way I see it, I suppose.
So there's it brings up some interesting concepts, and I think that if you look at digital data, clear ways of doing this kind of thing. But I always kind of come back to the biological world and biological systems. There's this evolutionary biology approach where you have a system that would evolve towards a certain strength, gain of function concept that you might have heard about, right? The system, in order, can pull in feedstock, and through its already constrained environment, it actually can evolve entity that you ultimately wanted to evolve towards, right? Mm-hmm. So I think of this again with the Beetle concept. There's an opportunity to try to set up an environment where a beetle population in a closed system with a mini set of trees, mm-hmm. and you somehow create an environment so that they have the right feedstock and all that, that they can evolve a symbiosis where the beetle doesn't die because it ate too much of its food, and the tree doesn't die because it's all eaten. You know what I mean? But you can somehow accelerate that and let it evolve out.
Whoa. Yeah.
Right, I mean? And if you get it to evolve out, and there's breeding involved, you just have to process, but you get to a point where you get this beetle that is eating just enough, but not too much. You get the skinny beetle, and then you introduce that in the population. And then it wins out.
Yeah.
Killing off all those overly hungry beetle. So you could basically not use a chemical substance. You use beetle as your product.
Yeah. Be the hand of God. Start breeding.
Yeah.
Selective breeding.
No, but that's
yeah.
I the way I look at it is nature is it's there for us mm-hmm. in so many of the problems we face today. And so I don't know if it's on the computer systems and the AI question answer stuff. I think sometimes it's just, hey, just black box it and let it go. Let the agents go circle.
Let it figure out the solution that's going to work is going to be the one that survives. It's
right.
All other shit is just going to fail.
Exactly. And that's what will happen ultimately. If we humans step back and just let the beetle eat all the trees on that island, the beetles will die. And over time, and it's beyond our human lifespan, unfortunately, they'll probably evolve out this symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, tell that to all those fuckers living at Sunset Point with their perfectly manicured palm trees and no, it's true.
We humans are living in the moment. It's back to the original point. And that's why the AI is like the .com. It's people expect it to be overnight, right away. And
Yeah.
sometimes we just have this long period of time we have to work through. But I don't know. So it's things like that you can think about setting up systems to do that. And so I don't know if you want to have a bunch of beetles in your kitchen with trees and terrariums and shit. I don't know if you want to do that.
Oh
but
god.
but I mean, that the reality is there's ways to even accelerate it even further. But that's what I meant is just let the systems evolve the solutions. And at the same time, I know that a lot of the times that's already been done. And nature's already done it. And we just have to find it. So the notion of repurposing drugs, most drugs came from nature anyway.
Yeah.
We just modify them slightly so that we can get intellectual property positions so pharma can make a bunch of money.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's the thing that interests me about the whole pesticide thing is exactly what you said. The answers are here. Every compound available to us, every whatever, it's already existed because Mother Nature made it exist.
Yeah, largely. I mean, we've made our own little variants of that, but yeah. I mean, plants have chemical warfare they use all the time to prevent insects from destroying them, right? And one of the reasons we benefit, human, from eating plants is that those are mini toxins to us. And what those mini toxins do is stimulate an immune response in our bodies. Just enough. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's why eating plants is actually good for you in that regard. As long as you don't go over the top vegan stuff where you're basically wasting away, I'd say.
Yeah. No, that's a crazy concept that resistance literally makes you, it transforms you into the part of you that survives where everything else doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about in terms of total available market of just about anything nowadays, we've got some interesting things taking place that you, as someone who's almost 30, will be experiencing. First, there's this massive transfer of wealth that's taking place with the baby boomers. Unfortunately, my father passed. I passed. There's a whole generation of people that will be passing soon. And then you're going to have a pretty substantial group of people who are in their 30s and 40s that are going to inherit significant sums of money.
Yep.
And a lot of them aren't equipped to handle that. They don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that just means there'll be people who are trying to scam people and there'll be all that stuff. And there'll be some significant spend because people, when they get a lot of money, if you've seen this, lottery winners, almost all of them go bankrupt at one point. There's very few. Because when you get a big chunk of money in your way, people wind up spending it because they don't know this concept of compounding. They haven't learned it, right? So there'll be this target-rich environment of customers for something. And then you really have to ask yourself, what is that something?
Good. Gonna stick my siphon right in there. Maximum value extraction. I'll be a realtor. I'll do your Christmas lights.
Yeah, but again, and something I commented to you when I was setting up here, an extended setup. We've been going a while, but the extended setup, that, by the way, that clock's an hour ahead. I haven't changed it yet. Yeah, so you're like, oh shit, get to bed. I gotta save my Christmas lights tomorrow. I was talking about potentially selling this place. There was this mindset I had that a chunk of money is valuable, but this place to me, the studio. Whether we're doing stuff like this, I'll do business meetings and I love music, and it's just a big man cave. It's kind of cool if you look around. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, right?
Yeah.
That to me is more valuable. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of whatever out of this thing. So money itself, there's clear studies. You reach sort of a point where it's not going to matter anymore. Once you get a certain amount coming your way, it's not going to be now. That number is different for everyone.
Yeah.
And Galloway, I mentioned this in one podcast, had a great definition of what it means to be rich. And the definition of rich, and I would argue to some people, you are considered rich from the way you're living. right?
Sure, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, it is. I mean, the definition of this perspective is when your passive income covers your expenses to live. In other words, you make money in your sleep in certain investments or whatever, and you're not having to work for that. And that just basically covers all your wants. And so for some people, that doesn't have to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
So some people, it's kind of gross. I look at some of the most wealthy people on the planet, and why are they continuing to try to make a ton of money? It's just a number. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because even you don't want to have, you want to have your generations to be comfortable and to have opportunities, but you don't want to have them to the point where they just are total fuck ups. And that's what can happen if there's a massive amount of wealth that's just passed down to the generation below.
It makes people lazy and don't know what to do with themselves,
Right.
don't know how to work. Why?
Exactly. You need purpose. You need every morning. I make a goal every time I get up. I don't even have a goal anymore with this. I just want to be generative every day. I want to generate some form of content, whether it's something like this or music or code or a new idea. Just like writers, when they want to write a book, they say, just write every day.
Yeah.
Just write every day. And so that's kind of what I do. Every day I'm trying to do something generative. And that to me is a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty easy to miss that mark. You could obsess over everything. You could live your life a certain way and make huge amounts of money, have everything, and still somehow miss the mark. Because it's a mindset thing, I suppose.
Totally is. I know a ton of people are wealthy as crap and unhappy as crap.
Yeah.
And I know several people who are not that wealthy and very happy. It's not a function of money at all. But if that is something you want to at least achieve, where you can say, oh, money doesn't matter, then yeah, build a business, get the lifestyle business, so that maybe even that during that 4 months of you just are burnt out where you hate doing it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm sure you don't hate doing it because you'd be bad at it. I'm sure you find a zen in hanging the lights at some.
Yeah.
Right?
That's all right. It's
Yeah.
hard to find something to complain about, you know?
Yeah.
It's like exactly that. Like you can it's a matter of perspective. You know, you can either see it as something that sucks or the exact opposite, that you have money, that you're on a roof, you're outdoors. People generally like what you're doing. I think that's the best thing about doing Christmas lights is people genuinely what I do.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't feel like I'm preying on anybody or, you know, abusing the system or something like that. People get what they want and they're happy about it. You know, especially like I told you I was in El Salvador for a few months. You know, every time you go someplace like that, it's like, God damn, like I really have nothing to complain about, you know? I mean,
yeah, I didn't appreciate that. So you were mostly in Hawaii, but when I talked to you that one time, you were just temporarily in El Salvador.
yeah.
I thought you were living in El Salvador the whole time. That's pretty aggressive.
No, it is aggressive. I get burnt out. You know, my stomach reaches a limit. Shit my brains out for 2 months, and then it's time to go home. You know.
Yeah, that's funny.
I don't have the immune system that those people have when you grow up there, and it's just a whole different biome that you're exposed to.
Yeah, and then you become soft when you come back to the state.
Right.
Yeah, we're definitely not like the Amazon here. It's very antiseptic, very not much biome diversity by comparison. You know? And so, yeah, they have their guts can handle a ton of stuff.
It's just the more you're exposed to, I guess, the more stronger you get.
Well, but you also do a lot of surfing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're in where basically shit flows.
Oh my God, it's disgusting. It's literally shit in the river and agricultural runoff, and it's truly disgusting sometimes. But I'm a fiend if the waves are good. Yeah, I have no option but to go.
That's interesting. And so you surf and munch while you're here?
A little bit, yeah. I have to do it to stay sane. That's what I do to not go insane.
I've never really gotten into surfing, so maybe you can explain it to me. Because, first of all, at least I see here, you have to work out there to get out to a wave. And then you get a wave, and it's rides are under 10 seconds or something like that. What part of it, maybe all of it, you enjoy, but what do you like the ride part? I mean, do you the wait part?
Yeah.
What is it?
This is good. This is, I like the working out part of it,
Yeah.
and I like the outdoor part of it.
Yeah.
The uncertainty factor, the fear factor. That's
Yeah.
that's what I like. Because I've been surfing my whole life, and it doesn't matter how much you've surfed. When the waves are big,
Oh, yeah.
doesn't matter if you're a big wave surfer. There's always a bigger wave that's gonna scare the shit out of you. And so it's kind of just it's a grounding activity, which is ironic because you're in the water, but keeps you on your toes, lets you know that you ain't shit. You could die at any moment. Things are bigger than you. And then when you actually do catch a wave on a big day and you just happen to not fuck it up and you're surfing it and you're scared of it, but at the same time you're becoming a part of it, it's very vibey. It's some Zen shit for sure.
With respect to it always being bigger than you, we were up in San Francisco for Lily's birthday, and we went to the beach, and it was on the Pacific side. It wasn't towards the bay, right? The water's a little colder. It's fine. I cold plunged, no big deal. But I was just going out there, and then apparently, I didn't notice that someone made a comment. Actually, Kirsten did, that there was the tanker, the cargo ship, really far out, but it was creating some waves. And then out of just nowhere, these big, 30, 40 feet high, as they were building up, one crushed into me, and I was just standing there out of nowhere, and I'm not foreign to the ocean, but I should have been on my toes a little bit more. And I was dumb. I was wearing sunglasses. It whipped my sunglasses off, hat, totally got a laundry machine rolling.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell? I was not out there trying to play. I was just like, I think I went out there to pee. That's about it. That reminded me, holy crap, this is dangerous. That was just there, not coral reefs beneath me or anything like that.
That's what it's all about. It's like masochistic type mentality. You learn to like it.
I remember very, very first time I water skied. It was so cool to see myself being pulled on top of the water and the ski on the ground, on the water, and it's just like going on the water. And I imagine that's the feeling you get when you're on a big wave and you're just sliding through. You can say, "Oh, I'm on top of the water. I'm part of it."
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing. It's just feels cosmic. If you think about the sun is just some energy, and then it just beats down on the earth, creates those crazy pressure differences and makes the water move, big storms, and then all of a sudden you're standing on top of the little energy from the cosmos. If you think about it that way, it's pretty sick, but
yeah, and then you just don't want to smash your face too much to get the concussion, so you don't have the ability to think anymore. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I definitely have felt face slams before, and even when I try to duck dive in, and it's just like, holy shit, that's concussive. And you don't want to have too many of those.
Just one or two, just enough to take the edge off.
Look at the football players. I don't think you want to have too many of those.
Yeah.
Because right now you're young, but when you're like 50 and 60 and 70, and you're like, you can't even remember your own name. It's like, if you think about that, right? Consequence of the actions. But you don't want to take it away from them. Obviously, it's a time to, and you might, I imagine you're out there on the board enough to just kind of reflect on wholeness.
Yeah. Also that.
All right, man. Well, so what I'll do here is think.
I really think that this is something that has not been described before. I think that it's like an inversion, like a complete departure from the way that math and science is normally approached, like philosophically and computationally and everything. And it's not that it alien to it. It kind of reframes the foundations for why those things make sense. This is just me trying to explain to you why I think it's so difficult, not actually what it is. We have all these bits of math and science, and they line up in many different ways, but not completely. I think what I have and what I'm trying to describe is kind of like a meta foundation that describes the relationship between all of these things, which I know it sounds extremely ambitious, extremely unlikely that I would be able to noodle my way with ChatGPT and come up with something coherent that actually does these things, because I truly think that I think it was a miracle of me just asking the correct questions and coming to certain conclusions with my mental gymnastics, basically. But I think what I have, and I have this one page, it's like a piece of category theory, if I could just send it to you. It's like this category theory axiom that I believe that explains or subsumes basically all of mathematics. Like I said, I don't know exactly if every single bit of it is true, but I think the axiomatic kernel of what I have is totally there. And I think that it's worth taking a look at.
Sure. So look, here's the bottom line. First, I would say don't underestimate yourself on some things. And if you have a level of insecurity, you shouldn't. Just because you don't have a doctorate or engineering background or anything like that, or a deep level of math that people might argue, if you were to try to publish this, they would say you just get blockaded right away because, well, who's this guy?
No.
Think that way at all, because the way I look at it is this concept of instinct. I don't think it's well described. Biology has this concept where these animals, including humans, can do shit that they were never taught, and they just do it. And that's, I think, because there's some genetic element that's passed on, and there's genetic capacity and capability, and there's epigenetic, where it's environmental, which actually is not just what you experience, it goes multiple generations back as well. So it's not just the ATCG of the DNA, it's also the little methyl groups on the outside of the supercoiled double helix. But all that together with stimulus could be just things you hear and see, smell, taste, all your senses just pick up. And you might not have necessarily done formal writings and the training on the math side, but you still could have some incredible concept that your brain is just trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And now you have a tool that just your words and your questions, and that you just basically have this oracle that you can say, well, how do I phrase this? And the chatbot give you that capability. And I'm saying, look, that's huge. Don't ever underestimate that. But keep in mind, there's also more than 8 billion people on the planet that actually also now have that same kind of interface.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to do something in the sense that you're trying to build something for the purpose of either monetizing it or just making yourself feel better on whatever the reason is, keep in mind there's a big chunk of people out there doing the same shit. And I've always said, if you have a good idea and you think you're the only person who's had it, you can be damn sure there's at least 10, maybe 100.
Yeah.
Even if it's really unique, there's someone else on this planet who's already had that same idea, or in the past, or is working on it now. And that's, again, back to this instinct and genetics and epigenetics and all this stuff. Finally, I'll just leave you with this one. It just occurred to me just today. I'm opening up a cabinet, and it goes right by my knee. Doesn't even hit my knee. And same cabinet every morning I do this, right? And I was just thinking, holy shit, it's proprioceptor, whatever it is. It's like my brain knew to put my foot not literally a centimeter further because it would bang into it, right? There are times where I can open up a door and I'll set down a box and it will be like right just enough. And I can, and I'm capable of doing, but I didn't do the mathematics to see what that pendulum motion, right? But our brains have this amazing capability
it's
to do all
fucking
that stuff.
wild. Yeah.
And so you are doing that every single day.
Yeah.
And so don't underestimate yourself at all. And just this kind of interaction we're having right now, I hope you can find other people as well, because limited time to do this stuff. But Chat GPT is there 24/7. Just make sure you exit sessions, because it will converge down, because it's got a limited memory for which it uses as a context.
Yeah.
And I've learned this in my own coding. In a session, I will code in some sessions for 12 hours. Literally, and I'll have multiple sessions going at once. And it will be looking through hundreds and thousands of lines of code, and it does compact conversation bullshit with Claude. But at the end of the day, if I get in this loop where it's just not doing what I want to do, I'm like, shit. Control C out of it, come back in, whoosh, fresh, and boom, it nails the problem.
Yeah.
It's just like taking a night of sleep. And so do that with ChatGPT every once in a while. Just literally quit out.
Yeah.
And then come back in.
I think I have my memory off, so I tell it not to reference previous conversations.
Oh, you should. You got to have it go across. Dude, and then you documents. God, it's so powerful. You put projects, gotta get projects with documents where you literally have documents that are living and breathing, where you can communicate to your document, ask them questions, and you get answers back. This is the reason why lawyers, their lives are short in the future.
Yeah,
I mean,
they really are.
it's just because that's all they do is documents. And doctors, coders, knowledge workers. So I have code bases that are projects. Literally, I think I mentioned you last. I think I've built 20 million lines of code now by November. 20 million lines of code just this year. I've done 30 million lines of code, 3 million lines of code in 30 years. And I'm 20 million lines of code that I've written in under a year. By pure English speaking. Yeah, pure English speaking.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely mess around with that. I haven't tried that yet, and that sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest.
Everything you see me that's on my website, the things I've been posting, every one of those applications are AI built, natural language built. And some of those are those crazy ones, an AI application, for Christ's sake. And I think I was telling you, the one thing I just recently did with my AI dad is I literally can send it emails and it will respond back to me.
Yeah.
And I send it enclosures with a couple tags, and it will add it to the memory of the AI system so it can then learn and reference those in the future. I used to communicate with my dad primarily by email anyway. So I am now communicating with my AI dad through email. And dude, it's coming back with some responses to me. Holy shit.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. It's an awesome idea.
Yeah, and so those are all little incrementals. You start with a little idea and you just keep building on it. So yeah, I would encourage you to start coding some applications around your ideas.
Yeah, definitely want to do that.
Wait till
Christmas lights is
over.
Yeah.
Once you're done, you're like, shit, I got bet. But January, February, March, dude, any one of those projects I sent to you, you could just take one of those and plaster it in and say, oh, I need some data set. Help me code up. Go.
Yeah.
Not ChatGPT. You literally need to have it in. Do you have a Mac or PC?
I got a Mac.
Okay, great. You open up your Mac, MacBook, whatever. Do a terminal session. You download NPM something. I don't remember exactly the sequence. You Google it, download it. You run it in Claude, Claude. Boom. And then it opens up a little terminal session. And you say, write me a program that does XYZ. And then it just goes. It asks for permissions and stuff, and before you know it, goes zip, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's bonkers,
dude.
That is actually
it interfaces directly with your For people who live in this space, it is a whole new world. It's mind-numbing.
Dude, I have some noodling to do for sure.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty fun, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm at the point now that I literally will code up applications for problems that I have at any given time during the day. My complicated probate situation I'm doing with my dad, I was getting thousands of documents. And I was like, I don't know where they're from. Okay. So let me build a document management system. And I literally walk it through. And I wanted to do XYZ and make it a web interface and have pull downs and open up emails. It wasn't instantaneous. It was iterative. But I built the application for my need on the fly.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And that's, people say, well, it's because you're a coder. Oh, it codes in Python. I hate Python.
Yeah.
I look at Python code and I just want to vomit. I'm just going, I don't want to look at that shit, but it's really good with Python.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've tried. I think I opened up a programming book once.
No.
Couldn't do it.
Dude, you don't have to do it. I mean, even the systems, when I heard the NVIDIA CEO talking about all his people use Cursor. I pull down Cursor, and it's still kind of like a coder's environment. It's got, here are your lists of your source files, and you can, I'm just like, oh, shit. I don't want to look at those source files. But that's just because I'm burnt out on coding over the years. So but to be able to articulate in English what you want to have built, dude, it's king.
I can do that.
You absolutely can. Absolutely. And your word choices will be key. Isn't your sister doing something in tech? See the
Yeah, she's a
char?
recruiter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine that she's got a ton of AI applications that came her way.
Yeah, probably.
That she needs AI to determine if the AI built applications are legit or not.
Yeah, problem. Just a bunch of computers talking to each other, pretending they're humans.
Yeah.
People are sending in robot resumes and that are being evaluated by robot recruiters. And
I know. Well, there's a big wave. Like I said, this next few months, that's why I say keep your job, because there's a big wave where there'll be significant layoffs and companies are going to realize, yeah, I mean, when Amazon laying off 30,000 people or some big number like that,
yeah,
that shit, you don't need that as many people as we've had to do these kinds of things anymore, because one person armed with these AI agent coding capabilities, 10 to 50 programmers. Yeah, I don't feel bad for people who are doing computer science right now in college. I don't, because they should see this as an opportunity. That
Yeah.
they should just know now what they need to focus on is not how to code, but how to tell a coder what to code.
Yeah, ask the right questions and know what the signal is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Cool stuff, man.